The emergency session alarm echoed through the crystal halls of Station Nexus, its piercing wail cutting through the usual diplomatic murmur that filled the Galactic Conclave's primary meeting chamber. Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthax Supremacy felt his twin hearts skip a beat as he hurried down the corridor, his ceremonial robes rustling against his scaled hide. In his 3 centuries of service to the Conclave, he had never heard that particular alarm sequence. It meant only one thing: an existential threat to galactic civilization. The massive chamber doors, each carved from a single piece of dark matter crystal, slid open with barely a whisper. Inside, representatives from 47 different species sat in their designated sections, arranged in concentric circles around the central speaking platform. The air itself seemed thick with tension, translator fields humming with overlapping conversations in dozens of languages. Zethkar noticed immediately that several key delegations were missing. The Andromedan Trade Federation seats sat empty, as did those of the Spiral Arm Coalition. Most troubling of all, the entire Outer Rim Defense Alliance section was vacant. "Order, order," the voice of High Mediator Quenentil boomed across the chamber, her forearms gesturing for silence. The ancient Zephyrian's skin had turned the deep purple that indicated extreme stress, something Zethkar had never witnessed in their long working relationship. "We convene this emergency session under Article 7 of the Galactic Charter. The matter before us today threatens not just our individual worlds, but the very fabric of civilized space." Zethkar took his seat among the Vorthak delegation, nodding to his aide Korth, who immediately began uploading the latest intelligence reports to his neural interface. What he saw there made his scales pale to a sickly yellow. The data was fragmentary, much of it third-hand accounts and long-range sensor readings, but the pattern was unmistakable. Something was moving through the galaxy's outer spiral arms, something that had already consumed 17 star systems in the past local month. The High Mediator activated the central holographic display, and a 3-dimensional map of their galaxy materialized in the air above the speaking platform. Red markers indicated destroyed systems, each one representing billions of lives lost. The pattern of destruction formed a rough spiral, moving inward toward the core worlds where most Conclave members maintained their capitals. "The entity or entities responsible for this devastation have been designated Threat Classification Omega," Quenentil continued, her translator struggling to convey the emotional weight behind her words. "Our combined fleets have engaged them on 4 separate occasions. Each engagement has resulted in total annihilation of our forces. We are not dealing with any known technology or tactical doctrine." A ripple of fear swept through the chamber. The Galactic Conclave commanded the most advanced military forces in known space. Their ships were protected by energy shields that could deflect stellar radiation, armed with weapons capable of cracking planetary cores, and crewed by beings whose tactical knowledge had been accumulated over millennia of warfare. If such forces were being destroyed without inflicting damage in return, what hope did any of them have? Ambassador Vexhai of the Crystalline Hierarchy raised her arm, the light refracting through her diamond-like skin, casting rainbow patterns across her section of the chamber. "High Mediator, our deep space monitoring stations recorded something unusual before they went dark. The attacking forces appear to adapt to our weapons systems in real time. Our plasma cannons become ineffective after the first volley. Our missile systems are somehow turned against us. It's as if they learn from each engagement and share that knowledge instantaneously." "That's impossible," rumbled Ambassador Throck of the Iron Claw Federation, his massive frame making the reinforced chair creak ominously. "No species can process tactical data that quickly. Even our most advanced artificial intelligence networks require significant computational time to analyze and adapt to new threats." High Mediator Quenentil gestured to activate another section of the display. "I wish that were true, Ambassador Throck. However, our analysis of the battle recording suggests we are dealing with something unprecedented. Observe." Holographic display shifted to show the final battle of the Outer Rim Defense Alliance. Their massive fleet, nearly 1,000 vessels strong, had formed the traditional defensive formation that had served galactic navies for centuries. The enemy force appeared on the display as a cloud of smaller objects, moving in what seemed like random patterns. When the first exchange of fire occurred, the Alliance fleet's coordinated barrage appeared to strike home, causing multiple explosions throughout the enemy formation. Then everything changed. The enemy swarm suddenly moved with perfect coordination, individual units flowing around incoming fire like water around stones. Their return volley was precise beyond any known targeting system, each shot finding gaps in shield coverage that should have been impossible to calculate. Within minutes, the entire Alliance fleet was debris. Notice how their movement patterns change, the High Mediator pointed out. In the first exchange, they move like individual units with poor coordination. By the second exchange, they're operating as a single entity with perfect tactical awareness. This level of adaptation would require processing power beyond our comprehension unless... She paused, letting the implications sink in. Zethkar felt his blood run cold as he understood what she was suggesting. Unless they're not adapting to our tactics, he said, rising to address the chamber. Unless they already know everything about our weapons, our formations, our standard procedures, unless they've been watching us for far longer than we realize. The chamber erupted in confused voices as delegates began arguing among themselves. Some species accused others of secretly providing intelligence to the enemy. Others demanded to know why their monitoring systems had failed to detect such extensive surveillance. Through it all, the High Mediator stood silent, her purple skin growing darker by the moment. Finally, she raised all four arms for silence. There is more. Our xenoarchaeology teams have been analyzing the destroyed systems, searching for clues about the enemy's origins or intentions. What they discovered changes everything we thought we knew about galactic history. The display shifted again, showing the shattered remains of the Kepler outpost, one of the first systems to be attacked. Instead of the typical debris field one might expect from orbital bombardment, the wreckage showed signs of complete molecular disassembly. Entire planets had been reduced to their component elements, arranged in neat geometric patterns that served no apparent purpose. They're not just destroying our worlds, Quentintil continued. They're harvesting them. Every atom of useful material is being collected and processed. Our initial assumption was that this was some form of resource gathering, but the patterns suggest something far more sophisticated. They're building something massive. Ambassador Creelin of the Photonic Assembly flickered through several different wavelengths before settling on a pale blue that indicated deep concern. High Mediator, our energy-based analysis of the construction patterns suggests they're creating some form of computational matrix. The arrangement of harvested materials follows mathematical principles that our best theoreticians barely comprehend. If our calculations are correct, they're building a thinking machine the size of a solar system. The implications hit the chamber like a physical force. A computational device on such a scale would possess processing power beyond anything previously imagined. It could simulate entire civilizations, predict the behavior of galactic-scale phenomena, or coordinate military operations across thousands of light years with perfect precision. The question before us, the High Mediator said, is what we do with this information. Our combined military forces have proven ineffective. Our technological advantages appear to be meaningless against an enemy that can adapt to any weapons system within minutes. Traditional defensive strategies are clearly inadequate. Ambassador Iltith of the Hive Collective, speaking through her primary drone body, raised a chitinous arm. High Mediator, my species has encountered similar adaptive behavior patterns before, though on a much smaller scale. In our experience, such entities usually have a specific goal that drives their expansion. If we could understand what they're trying to achieve, perhaps we could negotiate some form of accommodation. Negotiate? Ambassador Throck's laugh was like grinding metal. You want to negotiate with something that has already killed billions of our people, that has destroyed entire civilizations without even attempting communication. Not negotiate, Iltith clarified. Redirect. If their goal is resource acquisition for this construction project, perhaps we could offer them alternative sources. The galaxy is vast, and there are many uninhabited systems that could provide the materials they need. The High Mediator considered this carefully. The Xenopsychology Department has been analyzing their behavior patterns, trying to understand their motivations. Unfortunately, their analysis is troubling. The targeting patterns suggest they're not just seeking resources. They appear to be specifically targeting developed civilizations, places where complex life has evolved and achieved spaceflight capability. A chill settled over the chamber as delegates realized what this meant. The enemy wasn't simply harvesting raw materials. They were specifically hunting intelligent species. Every world they attacked had been home to advanced civilizations. Every destroyed system had contained libraries, art, culture, and knowledge accumulated over millions of years of development. "They're erasing us," whispered Ambassador Sendar of the Harmonic Convergence, her melodious voice barely audible above the chamber's ventilation systems. "Not just killing us, but removing every trace that we ever existed." Zethkar stood again, his mind racing through the tactical implications. "High Mediator, if their goal is the elimination of galactic civilization, then traditional military responses are indeed useless. We're not fighting an invasion, we're fighting an extinction event. We need to think beyond conventional warfare." "What do you propose?" the High Mediator asked. "Dispersion," Zethkar replied immediately. "We evacuate our core worlds and scatter our populations across the galaxy, make it impossible for them to find and eliminate all of us. Some of our people will survive to rebuild." "Unacceptable," Ambassador Throck rumbled. "We don't run from threats, we face them and destroy them." "With what?" Zethkar turned to face the Iron Claw delegate. "Our fleets are gone, our strongest weapons are useless, our most advanced technologies have been turned against us. Pride is a luxury we can no longer afford." The debate continued for hours, but no consensus emerged. Some delegations favored evacuation and dispersal. Others demanded a final, concentrated military strike using every remaining weapon in their arsenals. A few suggested attempting to contact other galactic powers beyond their local group, seeking aid from civilizations so distant that the enemy might not yet be aware of their existence. High Mediator Quenental called for a brief recess, and delegates scattered to their various lounges and meeting rooms to consult with their home governments. Zethkar made his way to the Vorthak delegation's private quarters, where his aide Korth was coordinating with their intelligence networks. "Any new information?" Zethkar asked. Korth's scales had turned the deep green that indicated stress in their species. "Ambassador, our long-range scouts have detected something disturbing. The enemy's construction project isn't just one solar system-sized computer. They're building multiple units, and they appear to be linked somehow. We're looking at a distributed intelligence network that could eventually span the entire galaxy." The implications were staggering. If the enemy succeeded in their construction project, they would possess computational resources capable of predicting and countering any possible resistance. They would become effectively omniscient within the galactic framework, able to anticipate every move their opponents might make. "There's something else," Korth continued. "Our deep space monitoring network picked up some unusual transmissions before it went dark. The enemy appears to be sending detailed data packages toward the galactic core, specifically toward the region where—" He stopped speaking, his scales turning pale yellow with shock. "Where what?" Zethkar demanded. "Toward the region where the ancient ruins are located. The ones the Archaeological Council sealed off 3 centuries ago because they contained technology too dangerous to study." Zethkar felt his twin heart stop beating for a moment. The sealed ruins in the galactic core were a closely guarded secret, known only to the highest levels of Conclave leadership. According to the classified reports he had access to, they contained evidence of a civilization so advanced that their technology appeared to violate known laws of physics. The Archaeological Council had determined that any attempt to study or activate the ruins could pose an existential threat to galactic civilization. "You're suggesting the enemy is connected to those ruins somehow." "I'm suggesting they might not be an external threat at all," Korth replied quietly. "What if they're responding to something we've already done? What if our presence in the galaxy, our expansion and development, has triggered some kind of automated response?" The possibility hit Zethkar like a physical blow. What if the enemy wasn't invading their galaxy, but defending it? What if every advanced civilization that achieved a certain level of technological development was automatically targeted for elimination? What if they were facing not an alien invasion, but an ancient security system that had been dormant for millions of years? The implications were too vast to fully comprehend. If Korth was correct, then every species in the galaxy was living on borrowed time. The moment any civilization achieved spaceflight and began expanding beyond their home system, they started a countdown toward their own extinction. Zethkar returned to the main chamber with his mind churning through possibilities. The debate had resumed in his absence, but now he barely heard the voices around him. Instead, he was thinking about the classified archaeological reports, trying to remember every detail about the sealed ruins. There had been mention of automated systems, of technologies that seemed designed to monitor and control galactic development. At the time, the reports had seemed like academic curiosities. Now they might represent the key to their survival. The High Mediator was speaking again, outlining various evacuation scenarios and discussing the logistics of dispersing 47 different species across millions of star systems. It was a monumental undertaking that would require unprecedented cooperation and resource sharing. Even if they succeeded, there was no guarantee that the enemy wouldn't eventually track down and eliminate every hidden colony and refugee camp. High Mediator, Zethkar interrupted, rising to address the chamber. I believe we may be approaching this threat from the wrong direction. What if the enemy isn't trying to conquer us? What if they're trying to protect something? The chamber fell silent as delegates turned to stare at him. Several species translator systems sparked as they struggled to process the concept. Explain, the High Mediator commanded. The classified archaeological sites in the galactic core contain technology that appears to monitor and control galactic development, Zethkar said carefully, aware that he was revealing state secrets to unauthorized personnel. What if our expansion has triggered an automated defense system? What if every species that achieves a certain level of technological development becomes a target not for conquest, but for elimination? The silence that followed was deafening. Ambassador Throck was the first to speak, his voice barely above a whisper. You're suggesting we're not fighting an invasion. We're fighting an extermination protocol. It would explain everything, Zethkar continued. The perfect adaptation to our weapons systems, the precise targeting of developed civilizations, the systematic destruction that leaves nothing useful behind. We're not valuable to them as slaves or resources. We're pests to be eliminated. High Mediator Quenentil's skin had turned so dark purple it was almost black. If your theory is correct, then there may be no escape. An automated system with galaxy-spanning resources would eventually track down every survivor, no matter where they tried to hide. Unless we could shut it down, Zethkar said. The archaeological sites in the galactic core might contain the control systems for this network. If we could reach them, study them, perhaps we could find a way to deactivate the threat. Impossible, Ambassador Iltith buzzed. The galactic core is protected by radiation levels that would kill any known form of life. Our best ships couldn't survive the journey, even with full shielding. Not any known form of life from our galaxy, Zethkar corrected. But there are rumors, classified reports of contact with species from outside our local galactic group. Beings adapted to environments we couldn't survive, possessing technologies we barely understand. The chamber erupted in surprised voices as delegates realized what he was suggesting. The existence of extragalactic civilizations was one of the most closely guarded secrets in Conclave intelligence files. Making contact with such entities was considered so dangerous that it had been banned by treaty among all member species. You want us to seek help from aliens, Ambassador Throck said, his voice heavy with disgust. To admit that we're too weak to protect ourselves and beg for assistance from unknown entities with unknowable motives. I want us to survive, Zethkar replied. Pride won't matter if we're all dead. The debate that followed was unlike anything in Conclave history. Delegates argued about the ethics of contacting extragalactic species, the risks of revealing their location to potentially hostile aliens, and the chances that such contact would even be possible given the vast distances involved. Through it all, the red markers on the holographic display continued to multiply as the enemy's advance accelerated toward the core worlds. Finally, High Mediator Quenentil called for order. The choice before us is clear, though none of our options are pleasant. We can evacuate and hope to survive as scattered refugees. We can make a final military stand and die with honor. Or we can attempt to contact extragalactic civilizations and hope they're willing and able to help us. There is a fourth option, a new voice said from the chamber's main entrance. Every delegate turned to see a figure they had hoped never to encounter again. Admiral Corvin of the disbanded Outer Rim Defense Alliance stood in the doorway, his uniform torn and blackened by weapons fire, his face grim with the weight of defeat. Behind him, a small group of surviving officers waited with the patient stance of soldiers who had seen too much death. Admiral Corvin, the High Mediator said carefully, our reports indicated that your entire fleet was destroyed. It was, Corvin replied, walking slowly down the central aisle toward the speaking platform. Along with every other military force we've sent against them. But we learned something in those final moments, something that changes everything about this threat. He reached the platform and activated his personal data interface, uploading information directly to the chamber's display system. New images appeared in the holographic field, close-range scans of the enemy forces, detailed enough to show individual weapon systems and hull configurations. "They're not aliens," Corvin announced, his words hitting the chamber like a bombshell. "They're us. Automated versions of our own ship designs, our own weapon systems, our own tactical doctrines. Someone has been copying our technology and mass-producing it for use against us." The implications were staggering. Every advancement in galactic military technology had essentially been handed to their enemies. Every new weapon design, every improved shield generator, every tactical innovation had been duplicated and turned against its creators. Who, the High Mediator demanded, who would have access to all our technological developments? Who would possess the industrial capacity to mass-produce such a fleet? Admiral Corvin's expression was grim as he delivered the answer that would change the course of galactic history. "We traced the origin of the automated fleet back through hyperspace jump signatures. The trail leads to a single source point, a location that every intelligence service in this chamber knows but has been ordered to forget." He paused, letting the tension build before delivering the final revelation. "The source is Earth. The humans are behind this." The silence following Admiral Corvin's revelation stretched for nearly a full minute, broken only by the soft hum of the chamber's environmental systems. Ambassador Zethkar felt his twin hearts hammering against his ribs as he processed the impossible information. Earth, the humans, the species that every intelligence agency in the galaxy had classified as primitive, barely capable of interplanetary travel, confined to their single small world on the galaxy's outermost spiral arm. "That's impossible," Ambassador Throck finally rumbled, his massive frame leaning forward in disbelief. "Our last intelligence reports on the human homeworld showed a species that had barely achieved fusion power. They lack faster-than-light travel, their weapons are chemical-based projectiles, and their largest spacecraft can barely reach their own planetary satellites." Admiral Corvin's scarred face twisted into something that might have been a smile under different circumstances. "Our last intelligence reports were 43 years old, Ambassador, and they were deliberately falsified." The holographic display shifted to show a detailed star chart of the galaxy's outer rim, with Earth's solar system highlighted in pulsing yellow. Surrounding it, in a sphere extending nearly 50 light-years in every direction, dozens of other star systems showed signs of recent industrial development. "Human expansion began approximately 37 years ago," Corvin continued, his voice carrying the weight of someone delivering a death sentence. "They achieved faster-than-light travel through a method we still don't understand, something that appears to violate our current understanding of physics. Instead of announcing their achievement to the galactic community, they began a program of systematic infiltration and intelligence gathering." "Infiltration." High Mediator Quentintil's forearms trembled slightly as she spoke. "Are you suggesting that humans have been operating among us without our knowledge?" "I'm not suggesting it," Corvin replied. "I'm stating it as confirmed fact. Over the past 30 years, humans have established observation posts on 17 different conclave worlds. They've infiltrated our communication networks, copied our technological databases, and studied our military doctrines with a thoroughness that suggests planning on a scale we never imagined possible." The chamber erupted in voices of outrage and disbelief. Several delegates demanded to know how such extensive infiltration could have gone undetected. Others questioned the reliability of Corvin's intelligence, pointing out that his entire fleet had been destroyed and asking how he could possibly have gathered such detailed information. Zethkar rose to address the Admiral directly. "With respect, sir, your claims seem to contradict everything we know about human capabilities. Even if they achieved faster-than-light travel, the logistical requirements for such an operation would be enormous. How could a single planet coordinate intelligence gathering across such a vast area?" "Because it's not a single planet anymore," Corvin replied grimly. "Show them." A new series of images appeared on the display, long-range sensor readings of the space surrounding Earth's solar system. What they revealed defied every assumption the Conclave had made about human limitations. The region of space around Earth contained not one inhabited world, but dozens, each showing signs of massive industrial development and population centers. Terraforming? Ambassador Sendar whispered, her melodious voice barely audible. They've terraformed entire worlds in less than 4 decades. The technological infrastructure required for such projects should take centuries to develop. Unless they didn't develop it themselves, Admiral Corvin said. Unless they stole it. The implications hit the chamber like a series of physical blows. The humans hadn't just been observing galactic civilization. They had been systematically copying every technological advancement achieved by every member species. While the Conclave had been sharing knowledge and cooperating on joint research projects, the humans had been building a parallel civilization using stolen technology. Ambassador Iltith's primary drone body clicked and buzzed as her collective consciousness processed the information. The timeline doesn't work, she announced. Even with stolen technology, the industrial capacity required to build the fleet that destroyed our forces would require resources and manufacturing infrastructure beyond what a single species could develop in 4 decades. You're right, Corvin agreed. Which brings us to the most disturbing part of our intelligence gathering. The humans aren't working alone. The display shifted again, showing detailed scans of the automated ships that had destroyed the Outer Rim Defense Alliance. The hull configurations and weapon placements were clearly based on Conclave designs, but there were modifications that didn't match any known technology. Additional armor plating and configurations that suggested different gravitational environments. Weapons systems designed for combat in radiation fields that would be lethal to any known species. Life support systems that appeared to be designed for silicon-based rather than carbon-based life forms. They've formed alliances with species from outside our galaxy, Corvin continued. Entities that our databases have no record of, civilizations that may have been observing us for far longer than we realize. The human infiltration operation was just the intelligence-gathering phase. What we're facing now is the opening move of a coordinated invasion by a coalition we never knew existed. High Mediator Quenentil's skin had cycled through several colors before settling on a deep black that indicated profound shock. You're suggesting that we're not just facing human aggression, but an extragalactic alliance that has been planning our destruction for decades. I'm suggesting that we've been living in a carefully maintained illusion of security while our enemies prepared for war, Corvin replied. Every intelligence report we received about human limitations was designed to keep us ignorant of the real threat. Every diplomatic contact we thought we were making with minor species in the Outer Rim was actually a reconnaissance mission. We've been studied, cataloged, and targeted with a precision that suggests planning on a scale beyond anything in our historical experience. Ambassador Creelan flickered through several wavelengths before settling on a deep red that indicated extreme agitation. If this analysis is correct, then our current crisis is not a natural disaster or an external invasion. It's the culmination of a deliberate strategy to weaken galactic civilization to the point where resistance would be impossible. The chamber fell into another period of stunned silence as delegates absorbed the full scope of the threat they were facing. This wasn't a battle they could win through superior firepower or tactical brilliance. They were confronting an enemy that had been preparing for war while they believed they were living in peace. Zethkar's aide Korth activated his personal communication device and whispered urgently into it for several minutes before approaching the speaking platform. Ambassador, he said quietly, our intelligence networks are reporting massive military buildups in 17 different sectors. Ships of unknown design are massing near strategic hyperspace junction points. It appears that the attacks we've witnessed so far were just probing actions. The main assault is about to begin. The information spread through the chamber like wildfire as other delegates received similar reports from their intelligence services. The scope of the coordinated attack became clear as reports filtered in from across the galaxy. Hundreds of star systems were reporting the approach of unidentified fleets. Communication networks were being systematically jammed. Strategic resources were being targeted by what appeared to be suicide missions designed to deny them to defending forces. How long do we have? The High Mediator asked. Admiral Corvin consulted his personal data device before answering. Based on the movement patterns we observed before our fleet was destroyed, I estimate we have perhaps 6 standard days before the coordinated assault begins. Maybe less if they decide to accelerate their timeline. 6 days to prepare for a war we can't win against an enemy that knows everything about us while we know almost nothing about them, Ambassador Throck summarized grimly. What do you recommend, Admiral? Corvin's expression was that of a soldier who had already accepted death, but was determined to make his final stand count. We need to gather every piece of intelligence we can about human capabilities and extragalactic alliances. We need to identify any weaknesses in their strategy or technology that we might be able to exploit. And we need to prepare for the possibility that the only way to save galactic civilization is to ensure that some small part of it survives to rebuild after we're gone. Evacuation protocols, Ambassador Sendar said quietly. We should begin immediately moving our populations away from strategic targets. To where? Ambassador Throck demanded. If they've been planning this for decades, they'll have identified every possible refuge. There's nowhere in the galaxy that would be safe from a coordinated assault. Perhaps not in the galaxy, Zethkar said thoughtfully. But there are other galaxies. If we could somehow reach the Magellanic Clouds or even Andromeda, establish refugee colonies beyond the reach of this alliance. Impossible, Ambassador Iltith buzzed. The energy requirements for intergalactic travel are beyond our current technology. Even our fastest ships would require thousands of years to reach the nearest neighboring galaxy. Not with our technology, Corvin said slowly. But the humans have demonstrated capabilities that shouldn't be possible according to our understanding of physics. If we could capture one of their ships, study their faster-than-light systems. You want us to attempt a military action against forces that have already destroyed every fleet we've sent against them? Ambassador Throck's laugh was bitter. That's not strategy, that's suicide. No, Zethkar interjected. It's necessity. If we're going to die anyway, we might as well die attempting something that could save our species. The debate that followed was intense but brief. Time was running short, and they all knew that traditional military strategies were useless against an enemy that could predict and counter their every move. Finally, High Mediator Quenentil called for a formal vote on a proposal that would have been unthinkable under normal circumstances. All in favor of authorizing a joint military operation to capture human technology for the purpose of enabling intergalactic evacuation. The vote was unanimous. Even Ambassador Throck, despite his earlier objections, voted in favor of what they all knew was likely a suicide mission. Admiral Corvin, the High Mediator said formally, you are hereby authorized to coordinate all available military assets for this operation. What do you need? Corvin was quiet for several moments, mentally calculating the resources required for what was essentially an impossible mission. I need every surviving ship in the Conclave fleet, regardless of design or species of origin. I need access to all intelligence files related to human capabilities and technology, and I need volunteers who understand that this is a one-way mission. You'll have them, the High Mediator promised. What's your target? The original source, Corvin replied. Earth itself. If the humans are coordinating this alliance from their homeworld, that's where their most advanced technology will be located. It's also where we're most likely to find information about their extragalactic allies. The practical problems with such a mission were enormous. Earth was located in the galaxy's outer rim, surrounded by the human sphere of influence that extended for 50 light-years in every direction. Any attack force would have to fight through multiple defensive lines, each one likely defended by forces equipped with stolen Conclave technology. Even if they somehow managed to reach Earth, there was no guarantee that they would find anything useful before being destroyed. There is one advantage we might have, Ambassador Creelan said, her photonic form flickering with possibility. If the humans have been studying us for decades, they'll be expecting us to behave according to our established military doctrines. They won't be prepared for a completely irrational assault that ignores all tactical logic. A kamikaze attack, Ambassador Throck rumbled approvingly. Something so desperate and illogical that their intelligence assessments won't have predicted it. Exactly, Corvin agreed. We can't win a conventional battle against them, but we might be able to accomplish a single objective if we're willing to sacrifice everything to achieve it. The next several hours were spent in frantic planning, as the various delegations coordinated with their home governments and military commands. Ships began converging on predetermined rally points throughout Conclave space. Intelligence files were shared among species that had previously kept their most sensitive information classified. Scientists and engineers from dozens of different worlds began collaborating on analysis of the limited data they had about human technology. Zethkar found himself assigned to the intelligence analysis team, working alongside experts from species he had previously known only as political rivals. The urgency of their situation had stripped away the diplomatic niceties and political maneuvering that normally characterized interspecies cooperation. They were no longer representatives of competing civilizations. They were survivors working together to preserve something of their collective heritage. The energy signatures from human ships suggest they're using some form of controlled spatial distortion for faster-than-light travel, reported Dr. Yester, a crystalline hierarchy physicist whose entire body sparkled with excitement despite the dire circumstances. The power requirements should be enormous, but our readings suggest they're drawing energy from an external source. External how? Zethkar asked. We're not sure. The energy patterns don't match anything in our databases. It's possible they've learned to tap directly into cosmic background radiation, or they might be accessing energy from parallel dimensions. Either way, if we could understand their power source, we might be able to disrupt it. Korth, who had been analyzing communication intercepts, looked up from his workstation with an expression of puzzled concern. Ambassador, we've been monitoring human communication frequencies, and there's something strange about their message traffic. Strange how? They're not using encryption, Korth replied. All of their military communications are being transmitted in clear text, as if they don't care whether we intercept them or not. The implications were troubling. Either the humans were incredibly arrogant, or they were confident that intercepted communications wouldn't matter, because their enemies wouldn't survive long enough to act on the intelligence. There's something else, Korth continued. The communication patterns suggest they're not receiving orders from Earth. The command structure appears to be distributed among their various colonies, with each world operating independently according to predetermined plans. Autonomous operations, Dr. Yester mused. That would explain how they can coordinate attacks across such vast distances without communication delays. Each force knows its objectives and timeline in advance. It also means that capturing their homeworld might not stop the assault, Zethkar realized grimly. If their fleet commanders are operating independently, destroying Earth might not save us. The intelligence analysis continued through the night as more data filtered in from across the galaxy. The picture that emerged was of an enemy force that had been planned and positioned with inhuman precision. Every major conclave military installation was being targeted simultaneously. Every strategic resource was being systematically denied to defending forces. Every escape route was being monitored and blocked. It's like watching a chess game where our opponent can see 20 moves ahead, Dr. Yester observed. Every countermove we might make has already been anticipated and prepared for. Unless we make a move that isn't on the chess board, Zethkar replied thoughtfully. Something so completely outside the parameters of logical military strategy that it couldn't be anticipated. As the hours passed, reports continued to arrive of human and allied forces moving into position for their coordinated assault. The scope of their operation was becoming clear, and it was larger than anyone had imagined. This wasn't just an attack on conclave military forces. It was a systematic plan to eliminate every trace of galactic civilization. Industrial worlds were being targeted to deny manufacturing capability. Agricultural worlds were being poisoned to prevent food production. Even worlds with no strategic value were being marked for destruction if they contained significant populations or cultural centers. The enemy wasn't just planning to conquer the galaxy. They were planning to erase it and rebuild it according to their own specifications. Final attack briefing in 1 hour, Admiral Corvin announced over the communication system. All volunteers report to Briefing Bay 7. This is your last chance to withdraw from the mission. Zethkar looked around the intelligence center at the diverse group of beings who had been working together for the past 18 hours. Scientists, engineers, analysts, and soldiers from dozens of different species, united by the knowledge that they were probably living through the final days of their civilizations. Are you going? Dr. Yester asked. Yes, Zethkar replied without hesitation. Someone needs to witness what happens. If by some miracle any of our people survive this, they'll need to know what we discovered. The briefing bay was packed with volunteers from every species in the conclave. Zethkar estimated that nearly 3,000 beings had volunteered for what everyone understood was a suicide mission. The diversity of the group was remarkable. Massive iron claw warriors standing alongside delicate photonic assembly energy beings, ancient Zephyrian diplomats next to young Vorthak engineers. Admiral Corvin took the speaking platform, his battle-scarred uniform and grim expression setting the tone for what was to come. "Ladies, gentlemen, and various other forms of sentient life," he began. "In approximately 4 hours, we will launch the final military operation in the history of the Galactic Conclave." He activated the holographic display, showing their target, the Sol system with Earth highlighted in red. "Our objective is simple in concept, but nearly impossible in execution. We need to reach Earth, capture or analyze human faster-than-light technology, and transmit that information back to Conclave space before we're destroyed." The tactical display showed the obstacles they would face. Human and allied forces had established a defensive perimeter around Earth that extended for several light years in every direction. The approach routes were monitored by sensor networks that would detect any incoming force long before they reached their target. "We have one advantage," Corvin continued. "Intelligence suggests that the humans are expecting us to retreat rather than attack. Their defensive preparations are designed to prevent escape rather than repel invasion. If we can reach Earth before they can fully mobilize their forces, we might have a small window of opportunity." "How small?" asked Captain Zertok of the Iron Claw heavy cruiser Vengeance. "Approximately 17 minutes, Corvin replied. "That's the estimated time between when we'll be detected at the edge of their sensor perimeter and when their full defensive fleet can respond to our presence. 17 minutes to accomplish what might be impossible even with unlimited time." The mathematics were daunting, but everyone in the briefing bay understood that mathematics were no longer relevant. This was about making a statement, about ensuring that when the galaxy fell, it would fall fighting. "Volunteers for the initial assault wave?" Corvin asked. Nearly every hand, claw, tentacle, and appendage in the bay rose immediately. The Admiral's scarred face showed the first hint of emotion Zethkar had seen from him. "It has been an honor serving with all of you," he said quietly. "May whatever gods our various species believe and have mercy on our enemies, because we certainly won't." The final preparations began immediately. Ships were fueled, weapons were loaded, and final messages were recorded for transmission to distant colonies in case any survived the coming war. Zethkar spent his last hours writing a detailed report of everything they had discovered about the human threat, encoding it for transmission on multiple frequencies to every corner of Conclave space. As he worked, he couldn't help but think about the irony of their situation. The humans had been so successful at infiltrating galactic civilization because they had seemed harmless, primitive, unworthy of serious attention. Now, when it was too late to matter, the Conclave was finally paying attention to Earth. Perhaps that had been the humans' greatest weapon. The assumption that intelligence and advancement were always obvious, always announced with grand gestures and technological displays. Instead, they had hidden their capabilities behind a facade of primitiveness while quietly building the most sophisticated intelligence operation in galactic history. "Final assembly in Bay 12, came the announcement. "All volunteers to Bay 12 for mission departure." Zethkar sealed his intelligence report and uploaded it to the ship's communication systems with instructions for automatic transmission if the ship was destroyed. Then he made his way to the assembly bay, where 3,000 volunteers from 47 different species were preparing to write the final chapter in the history of galactic civilization. Outside the massive bay windows, the stars waited in their eternal silence, unaware that within hours, the balance of power in the galaxy would shift forever. The humans and their mysterious allies had planned perfectly, but they had made one critical error. They had underestimated the determination of desperate beings fighting for the survival of everything they held dear. The attack fleet began forming up outside the station, a collection of ships representing every major technological advancement achieved by galactic civilization over the past millennium. It would be the last such gathering in history, and everyone aboard knew it. Admiral Corvin's voice echoed across the communication channels one final time. "All ships prepare for hyperspace jump. Target, Sol System, Planet Earth. May the galaxy remember us. The hyperspace jump to Sol System lasted 47 minutes. 47 minutes during which 3,000 volunteers from across the galaxy sat in silence, each lost in their own thoughts about what they expected to find at their destination. Ambassador Zethkar spent the time reviewing intelligence reports on human technology, searching for any detail that might provide an advantage in the coming battle. The more he studied the data, the more convinced he became that they were walking into a trap that had been decades in the making. When the fleet dropped out of hyperspace at the edge of the Sol system, what they found defied every expectation and tactical analysis that had been prepared for the mission. Instead of the massive defensive fleets they had anticipated, instead of the industrial infrastructure they expected to see around Earth, they found emptiness. "Admiral," came the voice of Captain Zertok over the communication channel, confusion evident even through the universal translator. "My sensors are showing the system is almost completely deserted. There are no major fleet concentrations, no defensive installations, minimal industrial activity." Admiral Corvin's response was immediate but uncertain. "Confirm that reading. All ships, full sensor sweep of the system." The results were the same across the entire fleet. Sol system contained its star, its planets, and very little else. Earth showed signs of habitation, but the population appeared to be minimal. The massive terraforming operations they had detected from long-range sensors were nowhere to be found. The industrial infrastructure that should have been required to support a galactic war effort was simply not there. "It's like they just left," reported Dr. Yester from the science vessel Crystalline Insight. "The planetary surfaces show evidence of recent evacuation, massive transport operations that must have moved billions of inhabitants." Ambassador Zethkar felt a chill run through his scales as the implications became clear. "Admiral, we need to consider the possibility that this is exactly what they wanted us to do. They fed us intelligence that would lead us here, to an empty system, while their real operations are conducted elsewhere." "You think this is a diversion?" Corvin asked. "I think we've been playing their game from the beginning," Zethkar replied grimly. "Every piece of intelligence we gathered, every tactical analysis we conducted, every plan we made was based on information they wanted us to have. We're not conducting a surprise attack. We're following a script they wrote for us." The realization hit the fleet like a physical blow. They had sacrificed everything, abandoned their home worlds and their responsibilities, committed themselves to what they knew was a suicide mission, only to discover that they had been manipulated into attacking an empty target. "All ships maintain formation but proceed with caution toward Earth," Admiral Corvin ordered. "If this is a trap, we'll spring it on our own terms." As the fleet moved deeper into Sol system, the scope of the deception became more apparent. Long-range sensors detected traces of massive industrial operations that had been recently dismantled and removed. Orbital installations had been stripped down to their basic structural elements. Even the asteroid mining operations that should have been providing raw materials for human expansion showed signs of systematic shutdown and evacuation. "Admiral," reported the communications officer aboard Corvin's flagship, "we're receiving a transmission from Earth. It appears to be directed specifically at our fleet." "Put it through." The holographic display in the flagship's command center activated, showing the image of a human female in what appeared to be a simple civilian outfit rather than military uniform. She was middle-aged by human standards, with graying hair and intelligent eyes that seemed to look directly at each member of the fleet, despite the impossibility of such a thing. "Greetings to the brave representatives of the Galactic Conclave," she said, her voice carrying an accent that the universal translators identified as originating from Earth's northern continent. "My name is Dr. Sarah Chen, and I'm speaking to you on behalf of the Human Colonial Administration. We've been expecting you." The admission that they had been expected sent a shiver of apprehension through the fleet. Every worst-case scenario about walking into a trap seemed to be coming true. Dr. Chen continued, "I know this isn't what you expected to find here. You were probably anticipating massive defensive fleets, industrial complexes, and evidence of the military infrastructure you believe we've been building to threaten galactic civilization. The fact that you find none of these things probably seems suspicious, and I don't blame you for that suspicion." She paused, looking directly into the camera with an expression that seemed genuinely sad. The truth is that everything your intelligence services discovered about human expansion and technology development was accurate. We have been expanding throughout this region of the galaxy for nearly 4 decades. We have developed faster-than-light travel and terraforming technology far in advance of what we publicly revealed to galactic civilization. And yes, we have been systematically gathering intelligence on every major species and government in conclave space. Admiral Corvin activated his communication system to respond, but Dr. Chen continued speaking as if she had heard his unspoken questions. "What your intelligence analysis got wrong was our motivation," she said. "We weren't preparing to attack galactic civilization, we were preparing to save it." The statement hit the fleet's command crews like a thunderbolt. Ambassador Zethkar felt his twin hearts skip several beats as he processed the impossible claim. "Save it from what?" Admiral Corvin demanded, though he wasn't sure if the transmission was capable of two-way communication. Dr. Chen answered as if she had heard him. "From the Devourers, from the entities that your archaeological teams discovered in the galactic core, but chose to classify and forget rather than study and understand. The automated systems that activate whenever galactic civilization reaches a certain level of technological development and begins expanding beyond predetermined boundaries." The holographic display shifted to show images that made every being in the fleet recoil in horror. Massive mechanical constructs, each one larger than a moon, drifting through space with purpose that radiated malevolent intelligence. Behind them, a wake of devastation that stretched across dozens of star systems, worlds reduced to component atoms and rearranged into geometric patterns that served no purpose except to demonstrate absolute dominion. "The entities you've been fighting, the ones that destroyed your fleets and eliminated your outer colonies, are not under human control," Dr. Chen continued. "They are autonomous systems left behind by a civilization that died out millions of years ago, designed to prevent any species from achieving the level of technological development that might threaten whatever it was they were trying to protect." The images continued, showing battle recordings from encounters that predated the current crisis by decades. Human ships, designs that were primitive compared to conclave technology, engaging the same automated forces that had destroyed the Outer Rim Defense Alliance. The humans were losing badly, but they were learning from each engagement in ways that suggested a systematic approach to gathering intelligence. 38 years ago, our first faster-than-light exploration mission encountered one of their scout units in a dead system approximately 40 light-years from Earth, Dr. Chen explained. It was a small probe, roughly the size of a fighter craft, but it was clearly studying our ship and recording our technological capabilities. When we attempted to communicate, it attacked. The display showed the encounter from multiple angles recorded by human sensors. The probe's attack was swift and precise, targeting every system on the human ship with weapons that adapted to their defensive capabilities in real time. The human vessel was destroyed within minutes, but not before transmitting detailed sensor readings back to Earth. "That encounter taught us three crucial things," Dr. Chen continued. "First, we were not alone in the galaxy, and we were not the most advanced species. Second, someone or something was monitoring technological development and responding to threats with overwhelming force. Third, we were already scheduled for elimination." The implications were staggering. The humans hadn't been planning an invasion of galactic civilization. They had been preparing for a war that had already begun, a war that the Conclave didn't even know it was fighting. From that point forward, every decision made by human leadership was guided by a single imperative: prepare for survival against an enemy with technology so advanced that conventional military resistance would be futile, Dr. Chen explained. "We accelerated our technological development, established colonies throughout our local region, and began gathering intelligence on every major galactic power." "But why the secrecy?" Admiral Corvin demanded. "Why not approach the Conclave directly and warn us about the threat?" Again, Dr. Chen seemed to hear his question. "Because we tried that first. Our initial contact attempts with Conclave diplomatic services were met with skepticism and dismissal. Your intelligence agencies classified us as a primitive species incapable of meaningful technological development. When we tried to share information about the automated threat, we were told that such claims were impossible and that we should focus on age-appropriate development goals." The display showed communication logs from early human attempts to establish formal diplomatic relations with various conclave species. The responses were uniformly dismissive, treating human claims about advanced technology and alien threats as either deliberate deception or primitive superstition. It became clear that the only way to protect galactic civilization was to develop the capability to protect it ourselves, Dr. Chen continued. So we began the infiltration program, not to gather intelligence for an invasion, but to understand your technological capabilities and identify ways to integrate them with our own defensive preparations. Ambassador Zethkar's mind raced through the implications of what they were hearing. If the humans were telling the truth, then every assumption the Conclave had made about the current crisis was wrong. The automated forces attacking their worlds weren't human weapons. They were the instruments of an ancient genocidal program that had been activated by galactic civilization's own technological progress. The terraforming operations, the industrial expansion, the fleet construction that your intelligence services detected, Dr. Chen continued. All of it was preparation for evacuation. When the automated systems began their systematic elimination of galactic civilization, we were ready to offer refuge to any species willing to accept it. Refuge where? Admiral Corvin asked. The display shifted to show star charts of regions beyond the galaxy's edge, vast areas of space that had never been explored by Conclave expeditions. Dozens of star systems showed signs of recent colonization and development, industrial infrastructures designed to support populations numbering in the billions. Extragalactic colonies, Dr. Chen explained. Safe harbor beyond the operational range of the automated systems. We've been transporting volunteers from across the galaxy for the past 6 months, evacuating populations from worlds that were scheduled for elimination. The revelation hit the fleet like a physical blow. The humans hadn't been planning to destroy galactic civilization. They had been secretly saving it. How many? Ambassador Zethkar whispered, though he wasn't sure his question could be heard. Approximately 200 million beings from 43 different species, Dr. Chen replied. Representatives from every major galactic civilization, plus complete databases of your cultural and technological heritage. If the automated systems succeed in eliminating every trace of life in this galaxy, at least something will survive to carry on your legacy. The scope of the operation was breathtaking. While the Conclave had been debating evacuation protocols and arguing about strategic responses, the humans had been quietly implementing the largest rescue operation in galactic history. The attack on your fleets, the destruction of your colonies, Admiral Corvin said slowly. If that wasn't you, then why didn't you warn us? Why let us believe you were the enemy? Dr. Chen's expression grew sad. Because we tried to warn you and you wouldn't listen. Every time we attempted to make contact, your governments classified the information and filed it away. When we tried to evacuate populations directly, we were accused of kidnapping and terrorism. The only way to save your people was to do it secretly, and the only way to keep the operation secret was to let you believe we were the threat. The display showed evidence of the human evacuation efforts. Massive transport ships arriving at remote colonies under cover of darkness, carefully coordinated rescues that removed entire populations while leaving behind evidence that suggested attacks by unknown forces. The humans had been saving people by making it appear that they were destroying them. The automated forces that destroyed your fleets are real, Dr. Chen continued. They are systematic, relentless, and far more advanced than anything either of our civilizations can field. But they have one crucial limitation. They operate according to predetermined parameters that haven't been updated for millions of years. What kind of limitations? Dr. Yester asked from her science vessel. They're designed to eliminate technological threats within this galaxy, Dr. Chen replied. But their programming doesn't extend to extragalactic space. Once a population is relocated beyond the galaxy's edge, the automated systems lose interest and focus on remaining threats within their operational area. The strategic implications were enormous. If the humans were correct, then the key to survival wasn't defeating the automated forces, but avoiding them entirely through complete evacuation. How many people can you evacuate? Admiral Corvin asked. With our current transport capacity, approximately 50 million per standard month, Dr. Chen replied. At that rate, we could evacuate the entire population of Conclave space in roughly 47 years. We don't have 47 years, Admiral Corvin pointed out grimly. According to our intelligence, the automated forces will complete their systematic elimination of galactic civilization within the next 6 months. We know, Dr. Chen acknowledged. That's why we've been accelerating the program and focusing on priority evacuations. Scientists, engineers, cultural specialists, and genetic samples from every known species. If we can't save everyone, we can at least preserve the knowledge and biological diversity necessary for eventual reconstruction. Ambassador Zethkar felt a complex mix of emotions as he processed what they had learned. Relief that the humans weren't their enemies, horror at the scope of the actual threat they were facing, and a growing sense that perhaps there was hope for survival after all. "What do you need from us?" he asked. "Cooperation," Dr. Chen replied immediately. "Your fleet represents the largest remaining concentration of advanced spacecraft in Conclave territory. If you're willing to work with us instead of against us, we can use your ships to dramatically increase our evacuation capacity." The offer hung in space between the human world and the Conclave fleet like a bridge, spanning an impossible gap. Everything they thought they knew about the current crisis had been wrong. Everything they had planned and prepared for had been based on false assumptions. But perhaps, if they were willing to trust their former enemies, there was still a chance to save something from the approaching catastrophe. "There's one more thing you need to know," Dr. Chen said, her expression growing even more serious. "The automated systems aren't just eliminating current galactic civilization. They're programmed to prevent any future technological development that might reach the same level. Unless we can find a way to deactivate them permanently, this cycle will repeat every time intelligence evolves to spacefaring capability." The display showed projections of galactic development over millions of years, the rise and fall of civilizations, each one growing to a certain point before being systematically eliminated by the automated forces. It was a pattern that had repeated dozens of times throughout galactic history, and it would continue repeating until someone found a way to break the cycle. "So even if we evacuate everyone, even if we establish new civilizations in other galaxies, eventually we'll face the same threat again," Ambassador Zethkar realized. "Unless we find the source," Dr. Chen confirmed. "Unless we locate the central control system for the automated forces and find a way to shut them down permanently. That's why we need your help. Our technology is advanced, but it's specialized for evacuation and transportation. Your military and scientific resources are exactly what we need to mount an expedition to the galactic core where the control systems are believed to be located." The proposal was staggering in its scope and danger. They were being asked to launch an expedition to the most dangerous region of the galaxy, to confront technology so advanced that it had been systematically eliminating spacefaring civilizations for millions of years. "What makes you think we can succeed where previous civilizations failed?" Admiral Corvin asked. "Because previous civilizations tried to fight the automated forces directly," Dr. Chen replied. "We're proposing something different. While the main evacuation continues, a small force makes its way to the galactic core using stealth and misdirection rather than military confrontation. The automated systems are focused on eliminating technological threats, not preventing archaeological expeditions." It was a desperate plan with almost no chance of success, but it was the only plan that offered hope for permanent resolution of the crisis. The alternative was endless evacuation and the knowledge that future generations would face the same extinction threat. "How long do we have to decide?" Ambassador Zethkar asked. "The next wave of automated attacks begins in approximately 72 hours, Dr. Chen replied. "If you're going to join the evacuation effort, we need to begin immediately. If you're going to attempt the expedition to the galactic core, you'll need to leave within the next 18 hours to avoid the main assault." 72 hours to save galactic civilization. 18 hours to decide the fate of millions of years of evolutionary development. The mathematics were impossible, but the necessity was absolute. Admiral Corvin activated the fleet's communication system to address all ships simultaneously. "All commanding officers, prepare for emergency conference. We have approximately 1 hour to make a decision that will determine the future of intelligent life in this galaxy." As the fleet's commanders gathered for the most crucial military decision in galactic history, Ambassador Zethkar couldn't help but think about the irony of their situation. They had come to Sol's system expecting to die fighting humanity's invasion fleet, only to discover that humanity had been trying to save them all along. Now they faced a choice that would determine whether galactic civilization would survive as refugees in distant galaxies, or find a way to reclaim their home through the most dangerous mission ever contemplated. The stars outside the ship's viewports looked exactly the same as they had when the fleet first arrived, but everything else had changed. The enemy they thought they were fighting was actually their salvation, and the salvation they thought they were fighting for would require them to venture into the heart of darkness itself. Time was running out, and the fate of billions hung in the balance. The emergency conference aboard Admiral Corvin's flagship brought together nearly 200 commanding officers representing every species in the Conclave fleet. The atmosphere was tense as beings who had expected to die as heroes struggling against human tyranny now faced the reality that they might instead be remembered as the last hope for galactic civilization. Ambassador Zethkar looked around the packed conference room, noting how the revelation about humanity's true role had changed everything about their mission dynamics. "The situation is clear," Admiral Corvin began, his battle-scarred face grim in the harsh lighting of the ship's command center. "We have two choices, and we have approximately 57 minutes to make a decision that will affect the survival of every intelligent species in the galaxy." The holographic display showed the current tactical situation. Their fleet positioned at the edge of Sol system, human evacuation ships scattered throughout extragalactic space, and the advancing automated forces that were systematically eliminating every trace of technological civilization from dozens of star systems. "Option 1, Corvin continued, we join the human evacuation effort. Our ships could transport approximately 8 million additional refugees beyond the galaxy's edge, where they would be safe from the automated elimination protocols. This option offers the highest probability of preserving some remnant of our civilizations." Captain Zertok of the Iron Claw Federation raised a massive arm. "And Option 2? Option 2 is an expedition to the galactic core, with the objective of locating and disabling the central control systems that coordinate the automated forces," Corvin replied. "Success would mean permanent elimination of the threat and the ability to rebuild galactic civilization in its original territory. Failure would mean the complete loss of our fleet and everyone aboard." The silence that followed was profound, as each commanding officer considered the implications. 8 million lives saved through evacuation versus the possibility of saving billions through direct action against the source of the threat. Commander Vexhai of the Crystalline Hierarchy flickered through several wavelengths before settling on a deep blue that indicated serious contemplation. "Admiral, what are the actual chances of success for a galactic core expedition?" "Unknown," Corvin answered honestly. "We have no reliable intelligence about the defenses protecting the core control systems. Previous expeditions to that region have never returned, so we can't even confirm that the control systems exist in the form we expect. We would essentially be flying blind into the most dangerous region of the galaxy." "But if the humans are correct," Ambassador Zethkar interjected, "then this is the only way to permanently resolve the crisis. Evacuation will save lives, but it won't prevent the same pattern from repeating with future civilizations." Dr. Yester's crystalline form sparkled as she spoke. "The archaeological evidence supports the human assessment. We have records of at least 17 previous galactic civilizations that reached spacefaring status and then mysteriously vanished. If the automated systems are indeed millions of years old, they represent the greatest threat to intelligent life that has ever existed." Captain Thondar of the Harmonic Convergence, his melodic voice carrying harmonics of deep concern, raised a question that had been troubling many of the officers. "Admiral, if we choose the core expedition, what happens to the evacuation effort? Are we condemning millions of beings to death by not participating in their rescue?" "The humans indicated that their evacuation operations will continue regardless of our decision," Corvin replied. "Our participation would increase their capacity, but they're not dependent on our ships for the basic rescue missions." The debate continued for nearly half an hour as commanders wrestled with the impossible mathematics of the decision. Save 8 million lives through certain evacuation, or risk everything on a mission that might save billions but would probably save no one. Finally, Admiral Corvin called for a formal vote, all in favor of joining the evacuation effort. Approximately 1/3 of the commanding officers raised their hands, tentacles, or other appendages. all in favor of the Galactic Core expedition. The remaining two-thirds voted for the core mission. The Galactic Core expedition is authorized, Corvin announced. However, given the nature of this mission, I'm going to allow any ship or crew member who voted for evacuation to transfer to the human rescue operation. This is a volunteer mission only. Over the next 30 minutes, approximately 40 ships and their crews transferred to assist with evacuation operations, leaving a core force of 160 vessels committed to the Galactic Core expedition. It was still the largest military force assembled since the formation of the Conclave, but everyone understood that size would mean nothing against technology that had been systematically eliminating galactic civilizations for millions of years. Dr. Chen's image appeared on the communication screen as the final preparations were being completed. Admiral Corvin, we've prepared everything we can to assist your mission. We're transferring detailed archaeological data about the galactic core region, long-range sensor readings of the automated forces, and our best theoretical analysis of their operational parameters. What about support? Corvin asked. Are any human ships joining the expedition? 12 of our fastest scout vessels will accompany your fleet, Dr. Chen replied. They're equipped with our most advanced stealth systems and long-range communication arrays. If your mission succeeds, they'll be able to relay the shutdown codes to our evacuation fleet. If it fails, they'll ensure that someone survives to document what you discover. The human contribution to the expedition was modest, but strategically important. Their stealth technology was based on principles that Conclave science didn't fully understand, and their communication systems could transmit across galactic distances in real time through methods that violated known laws of physics. There's one more thing, Dr. Chen added. Our analysis of the automated forces suggests they operate on predictable patrol patterns. We've identified a window of approximately 6 hours when their presence in the galactic core region will be minimal. That's your best opportunity to reach the central control systems. 6 hours from when? Admiral Corvin asked. 6 hours from now. The window opens in approximately 14 minutes. The timeline was impossible, but it was the only chance they would have. The fleet would need to make the journey to the galactic core in a single hyperspace jump, locate the control systems, analyze their operation, and implement shutdown procedures all within a 6-hour window. Any delay would mean encountering automated forces that could destroy their entire expedition before they could complete their mission. All ships prepare for emergency hyperspace jump, Corvin ordered. Target coordinates are being transmitted now. Jump in 60 seconds. Ambassador Zethkar strapped himself into his acceleration couch and activated his personal communication device to record a final message. This is Ambassador Zethkar of the Vorthax Supremacy, recording what may be the final entry in the official log of the Galactic Conclave. In 12 minutes, our fleet will attempt to end a threat that has been eliminating intelligent life in this galaxy for millions of years. If we succeed, galactic civilization will be restored to its rightful place among the stars. If we fail, at least we will have tried to break a cycle of extinction that has claimed countless previous civilizations. He paused, looking out the viewport at the assembled fleet that represented the best efforts of 47 different species working together toward a common goal. Whatever happens in the next few hours, let the record show that when faced with extinction, the people of this galaxy chose to fight rather than simply flee. We go now to face the unknown, carrying with us the hopes and dreams of billions of beings who believe that intelligence and courage can triumph over automated tyranny. The hyperspace jump to the galactic core was unlike anything Zethkar had experienced in 3 centuries of space travel. The region around the galaxy's central black hole was saturated with radiation and gravitational anomalies that made navigation nearly impossible. Ships that had functioned perfectly in normal space began showing stress fractures and system failures within minutes of arrival. All ships report status, Admiral Corvin ordered as the fleet emerged from hyperspace into a realm of space that seemed to defy natural law. The responses were mixed but generally positive. Several ships had suffered minor system failures, and 2 vessels had lost their primary navigation systems, but the fleet was intact and functional. More importantly, they had arrived undetected. The automated forces that patrolled this region were nowhere in sight. Sensors are detecting massive artificial structures approximately 3 light hours from our current position, reported Dr. Yester from her science vessel. The energy signatures are unlike anything in our databases, but the geometric patterns suggest they're the control systems we're looking for. The holographic display showed images that made everyone aboard the fleet pause in wonder and terror. Massive structures that dwarfed entire star systems floated in the space around the galactic core, their surfaces covered with patterns that seemed to shift and change as they watched. The scale was so vast that individual details were impossible to make out even with the most advanced sensors. "Those aren't buildings," Captain Zertok observed quietly. "They're machines, thinking machines the size of solar systems." "And they're all connected," Dr. Yester added. "I'm reading data transmission links between the structures that carry more information than our entire civilization has ever generated. This isn't just a control system. It's a distributed intelligence network with processing power beyond our ability to calculate." Ambassador Zethkar studied the sensor readings with a growing sense of awe and dread. They were looking at technology that represented millions of years of development by a civilization so advanced that their simplest tools surpassed anything the current galaxy had ever achieved. "Any sign of defensive systems?" Admiral Corvin asked. "Nothing that registers on our sensors," replied the fleet's tactical officer. "Either they don't consider us a threat worth defending against, or their defensive systems operate on principles we can't detect. Or they're so confident in their superiority that they don't bother with defenses," Captain Zertok added grimly. The fleet began its approach to the nearest control structure, maintaining formation, but spreading out to reduce the chance that a single defensive weapon could eliminate multiple ships. As they drew closer, the true scale of what they were approaching became clear. The structure was larger than most star systems, its surface covered with geometric patterns that seemed to serve as both decoration and functional components. "I'm reading massive data flows throughout the structure," Dr. Yester reported. "It appears to be processing information about every automated unit operating throughout the galaxy. This might actually be the central coordination node we're looking for." "How do we shut it down?" Admiral Corvin asked the question that everyone was thinking, but no one wanted to voice. "Unknown," Dr. Yester admitted. "The technology is so far beyond our understanding that we can't even identify basic operational principles. It's like asking a primitive hunter to repair a starship using only stone tools." The comparison was depressingly accurate. They were representatives of what they had considered advanced galactic civilization, but compared to the entities that had built these structures, they were barely more advanced than insects. "We need to get closer," Zethkar said. "Send boarding parties to the structure's surface. Maybe if we can examine the technology directly, we can find some kind of manual override or shutdown mechanism." It was a desperate plan with little chance of success, but it was the only option they could think of. 12 small shuttlecraft launched from various ships in the fleet, each one carrying a mixed crew of scientists, engineers, and security personnel representing different species and technological specialties. Ambassador Zethkar was aboard the lead shuttle, piloted by a young Vorthak engineer named Kester who had volunteered for the mission despite having no military training. As they approached the massive structure's surface, Zethkar marveled at the complexity of